Thanks so much for letting me join today. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about XPrize Wildfire. So I'm Andrea Santy. I am the program director for XPrize Wildfire. I just joined XPrize in January of this year. Before that, I spent about 4 years at the Smithsonian Institution, where I was working to help bring together the science across the institution. Smithsonian's a huge place with 21 museums and 9 research centers, and so very dispersed and siloed. And so our job was to try to make sure that everybody was connecting. And that was a really great experience. Before that, I was at World Wildlife Fund for almost 2 decades, leading the Russell Retrain Education for Nature program, which supports proven and potential conservation leaders across the global south in about 20 to 30 countries, kind of depending on the year. So my background really is conservation. I had some experience working with wildfires before I joined the program, but in the global south, wildfires, usually kind of you're starting and stopping with a really good fire break. And so it's a whole different ball game with what XPrize Wildfire is doing. So I am very much still learning. And so there might be tech questions that I can't yet answer, but I'm getting up to speed pretty quick. So really excited to be able to hear some input from you guys about what you think and just questions. So XPrize, before I talk about the specific competition, XPrize is an organization that started about 30 years ago. The founder of the organization was really inspired by Charles Lindbergh and how the reason Lindbergh decided to try to cross the Atlantic was because of a competition. And he didn't even do it just for the money. It was really to be able to be part of something bigger and to be able to show that it was possible and something he could do. And so Peter Diamandis, our founder, used that same approach to try to spur private spaceflight. So the very first prize that we launched was the Ansari Prize, and it was to be able to have private spaceflight, which, as you guys know today, is an industry that is growing. And so those teams back then had to launch twice in 2 weeks, and they had to be able to come back safely, and the pilot had to live for 24 hours. And so that was this first kind of like grand prize. And they thankfully were able to do it safely. They've used that model in about 25 other prizes since then, 18 of which have been won. The way that X prizes are designed is really to make it something that's so audacious that it may or may not be possible. And so only 18 of the 25 prizes have had winners. For XPrize Wildfire, we have heard from different folks in the community that they think this is absolutely doable. And so that's really exciting for us to know that being able to have this prize is really going to be able to spur the innovation that it needs. So with that background, we are focused on ending destructive wildfires. For those of you who are working in forestry or other conservation areas, you probably know that not all wildfires are fires that we want to put out. A lot of wildfires are good fires. We need fire on the landscape. Historically, we've always had it. It was only in the past maybe 100 years that there's really been this change towards having a much more suppression-focused model. We're trying to work that back within the wildfire community, really to make sure that we're looking at prescribed burns, looking at removing fuel from forests and other approaches that would help to mitigate and reduce the risk of extreme wildfires. But because we have this long history, extreme wildfires are becoming more common. This is both because of the traditional, like the history over the past 100 years, but also because of the changing climate. As we have drier areas and hotter areas, that creates the conditions for wildfires to go from something small to really something destructive. And so XPrize is looking at how do we improve our ability to detect wildfires and then also suppress those wildfires that need to be suppressed. So that's just a little bit of the background there. When XPrize starts to develop a prize, one of the things we're looking at is where there are opportunities for tech to really help solve the problem. For wildfires, we have a number of different challenges. One of the biggest things right now is the time to detection. I didn't know this before I joined XPrize, but most wildfires are still detected around the world by someone making a phone call. So a citizen calling in to either 911 or someone calling in, their other emergency services to say, hey, I see smoke or I see a fire. The average time for that to happen at best case is 15 minutes. And so right there, we have a real big opportunity to be able to move detection faster, because wildfires can grow really quickly in the right conditions, and that is when they become deadly. So really having this early detection is going to be a game changer. Wildfires often happen in areas where it's inaccessible to our current technology. So if they're in a big ravine, or if they're on a steep slope, that's not places where all of our technology can currently get to. So fire trucks can only drive down something that's a 40% slope. Aircraft can only fly when there isn't significant smoke, because then it becomes unsafe. And so we have a lot of situations where wildfires are present and our current technology doesn't allow us. And so we know that if we're able to detect faster, that gives us a better chance of both using the new technology and existing technology. So this, extreme conditions, if it's really windy, a lot of times our different tech can't work. And then wildfires, like many other sectors that we know of, is siloed. And so for wildfires, the detection, the response and suppression can be across multiple different agencies. It can also be across multiple different parts of the agency. So from your local firefighter to municipal to state to federal. And so because of those disconnects, that can also slow down the rate and speed of response. When most of the advanced tech and even just the advanced services are really still mainly in the global north and not yet available in the global south. I was just talking with a partner from the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, who was saying that in some of their partners in different parts of the world really haven't developed super advanced systems for addressing extreme events in general. And so their emergency services aren't quite as well coordinated as in some parts of the world. So those are some of the things that we are looking at and trying to address. We have just launched our prize. So the XPrize Wildfire is a 4-year, $11 million prize that is going to run across 2 different tracks, which I'll share. We launched on April 21st. I don't know if any of you guys know this guy on the right-hand side, but that is Palmer Luckey. And he came to our launch and has thrown his hat in as a potential competitor. He is the creator of the Oculus. And so we're really excited to know that we've got kind of folks from student groups all the way up to established businesses that feel that being able to participate in this prize is really going to be able to move the needle on wildfire detection and response. And so I included a photo of him. He's also super knowledgeable about wildfires. I've been really impressed. So as I said, it's 11 million, but it's actually 10 million in prize purse. And then we have an additional 1 million from Lockheed Martin that's just for detection. And so that will likely be split across the 2 tracks. 4 years, but there's the caveat, it's not really 4 years. It's actually 22 months if you're competing for one track, which is our space-based, and 36 to 42 months if you're competing for the autonomous wildfire response. We say 4 years because we've been working on this for longer than what the competition runs. And so it's a little bit misleading, but it all adds up in the end. So these 2 tracks, we really broke it down into looking at, we've got different challenges with wildfire. There's not going to be one solution that solves everything. And so these are 2 different approaches to being able to improve detection. And then one also includes a response. So for space-based detection, this is a challenge for teams to be able to detect every single fire with precision and accuracy within basically a minute or two. They then have to transmit that information to 2 ground stations, and then have it in a user-friendly interface. Where this is going to really help to advance technology is a lot in the AI and the data that they're going to be using to do the machine learning to be able to really improve what the detection looks like. Currently, we anticipate most teams being able to do detection at about a fire that's about 10 square meters. But we're hoping they're going to be able to get down to detection of a fire at 1 square meter. And so that would be a huge gain in our ability to have that type of detection. We are looking at space-based detections, but teams are actually going to be competing on a high altitude platform, and then kind of simulating what they would be seeing from space. And so that is what we help to provide, is we provide the testing situation, we provide the HAP, and we provide the ability for teams to come together and try to reach this, this ambitious goal. Autonomous wildfire response is what we consider maybe a little bit more of a traditional XPrize, because it's kind of like any tech that you want to bring could help solve this. So for the autonomous wildfire response, teams have 10 minutes to detect, get to, and suppress an incipient fire, which is kind of a fire that's just starting. In this case, they are going to basically have a testing area where we're going to say, okay, go. And they'll have to get out there and be able to get it. It's going to be really exciting to be able to see. We know that teams are bringing all sorts of different solutions. It's going to be drones. It's going to be robots. There'll be Internet of Things, a whole bunch of different ways that you can detect, then respond and suppress a fire. Most teams that we've talked to don't have the whole package. And so one thing that we do is we do team matchmaking. So you might have a team that's really great at detection, a team that's really great at response and suppression. And so then we help to create a space where people can meet each other and join together if they are so interested. We've got a pretty quick timeline to do this, so we are hoping to be able to see significant innovation fast. So like I said, for space-based, it is 22 months. So by January 2025, we could have tech that is able to significantly improve the ability of us to be able to detect wildfires from space. For the autonomous wildfire, it's going to end in April 2026. And it's really just to me, kind of mind blowing to think that we might be able to have teams that can actually win this challenge. We know that we've already seen some video of teams that could potentially win this challenge. We know that teams are saying that they know they can do it. And so we're really excited to be able to see what is going to play out. XPrize, one of the big things is the testing. So we are looking to be able to validate that this tech is functional and works as it's intended to work. And so we will have live fire testing in semifinals and finals in different kind of shapes and forms. The prize is supported by a whole bunch of different sponsors. So we have Pacific Electric and Gas and the Moore Foundation are our co-title sponsors. Minderoo Foundation out of Australia is our presenting sponsor. And then we also have funding from Lockheed Martin for the bonus prize, as well as Hilton Foundation, and then some private donors that have contributed. We're really appreciative. We couldn't do this without them. And we are currently recruiting for teams. And so that was kind of the big reason why we wanted to be able to share, was that we know that Wild Labs has been working in the conservation tech space for years now. And you guys are great advocates for being able to let people know about the prize. Hopefully there's some potential competitors on this webinar. And so, feel free to check it out. We have our competition guidelines up, which gives a lot more detail about the prize. We also have our email is wildfire@xprize.org, and you are welcome to send an email. We're currently collecting all of those questions, and then we're going to be posting and updating our FAQ and then providing individual responses. It's a lot of information. It's also, the two tracks are different enough. And so in 10 minutes, I didn't want to take up too much time, but happy to answer questions if there's questions. And you can also find me at andrea.santy@xprize.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Andrea. That was awesome. You have had lots of excited comments and questions in the chat. And I know XPrize has generated a lot of excitement in our community in the past around the bushfire challenge. So yeah, hopefully we will have some folks interested in more conversations to come.